Hello and welcome back to another KCC video. I'm Rob, and today we'll be jumping into malicious compliance. Before we start, please hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell so you know when the next video goes live. Our first story today comes to us from Reckless Commenter. Don't ask me again about a refund or you'll get nothing. Okay, I won't. Let's jump right in. Among 20 to 30 somethings around the world, social dance has become not just a hobby but a community. People routinely travel to other cities and even other countries to attend dance weekends, with local dancers hosting visitors. It's a great combination of fun, social connections, and hijinks, and a physical skill that can ratchet up to high intensity. Many such events are organized by professionals who are event organizing rock stars. Other events are fly-by-the-seat-of-their-pants affairs, run by amateur organizers who couldn't manage a lemonade stand. This story is about the second kind. An organizer announced a 4-day dance camp in another state with a bunch of instructors. It was a first-time event, but I knew these people from some past events and it sounded like fun. 4 months before the event, a registration website opened and the early bird registration cost like $600. I had the time and 30 single professional income, so I bit the bullet. Weeks passed, TBD event details remained TBD, which was unusual, but not that unusual. More weeks passed, I started periodically emailing the lead organizer asking for updates. Occasionally, I got a vague assurance that it's all good, other times radio silence, deepening skepticism. 4 days before the start of the event, I received a message from the lead organizer. Event canceled, something rain damage to the venue. I was disappointed but hardly surprised. Mostly annoyed because United wouldn't change or refund my ticket. When shall I expect a refund? Sorry, we all lost money on the planning of this event. No refunds. What? I started digging. Rain damage looked sketchy because the National Weather Service reported that the whole state had received 1 inch of rain in the past month. I personally knew one of the lead organizer's associates, so I called him up. Yeah, no rain damage. He gave me an earful about months of non-planning. The event had been a mirage. I sent a rather to-the-point email message demanding a refund, and the lead organizer agreed and asked for a few weeks. The refund didn't arrive. More email exchanges led to more promises and more missed dates. Eventually, about 9 months after the scheduled event, I received one last response. Don't ask me again about this or I won't refund anything. I waited another month and then, late one evening, something in my brain clicked and I decided, time's up. Malicious compliance. He doesn't want me to ask him about it again? Okay, I won't. Instead, I visited the main web forum for this dance community and posted my entire experience, backed by facts and dates and quotes. I copied the full unedited email exchange between me and this organizer, up to and including his last message. I reviewed and tweaked it carefully, repeatedly, making sure that every statement was accurate and fair. I clicked the post and went to bed. When I woke up the next morning, my inbox was on fire. The dance community came down on this organizer like a nuclear bomb. Upcoming events scratched him from their rosters. People posted about some of the slimy things this organizer had done previously in past events. Students and, I was told later, some close friends dropped him. Best part, a few pro organizers of other top-tier events publicly responded. This is not how our community operates, and not how we treat people. And to prove it, we're offering OP a complimentary pass to our events. The lead organizer initially posted an indignant reply, but quickly realized the gravity and hopelessness of his situation and shifted gears. He called me, first time actually communicating with me outside of email, pleaded for forgiveness, and promised a full refund. Sniveling a bit about needing to take a cash advance from a credit card, full refund arrived about a week later. For years afterwards, I periodically received messages from people reading, "Hey, this organizer wants to do an event with us, but we heard something about a bad experience you had with him. Can you tell us what happened?" Sure, here's a link to the forum post that documents what went down. I deleted it about 5 years after the event because I don't believe in ruining people for life. Well, I personally think that OP should have kept that post up on the forum. I mean, people need to be held accountable for their crappiness. Our next story comes to us from CSMF Jeremiah Weed. Don't want to pay me for a holiday? I'll quit exactly when I said I would. Let's jump right in. Maybe not the most epic malicious compliance, but malicious compliance nonetheless. In my 20s, I was working in government contracting. The company I worked for, while they had treated me well, was unfortunately not doing well, and I was worried about being laid off. A friend invited me to interview with the company she was working for. This new company was small, but on the cutting edge, and really seemed like my next big career step. During my interview, I was asked about my primary skill set. We'll call it skill set A or SSA, but also another skill set, SSB, that I had a little experience in. I was told that SSB would not be my primary job, but I might be tasked with a project or two on occasion. I told them as long as they understood that my expertise was in SSA, that I was happy to learn and work on expanding SSB. I received an offer 40% higher than what I was currently making. I promptly accepted the offer, put in my 2 weeks, and bid a fond farewell to my old company, and threw myself into my new position. Upon starting at the new company, I discovered my job title was actually SSB Manager. I was assured that I would still be doing SSA work. It was just that they needed someone to fill the SSB Manager slot, and since I was going to be working on learning more about SSB, that it shouldn't be a problem. Though intimidated, I was young and gung-ho about my career, so I decided to simply throw myself into my new job duties and be the best SSB manager I could be. There was a lot to look forward to with my future in this company. Within the first few months, I was already being booked on business trips across the country, even told I should acquire a passport for some international trips. And we had regular company retreats and dinners to fancy local hotels and social hotspots. The office itself was an industry nerd's dream. Imagine being a NASCAR fanatic and your office sits on the racetrack. Also, when I asked for direction on my project, I was told that I had full creative license to run them as I saw fit. Sounds like a dream, right? Very quickly, the dream turned into a nightmare. I never did a single piece of work in SSA, which sucked because I really enjoy SSA work. I did the best I could with SSB, but without direction or any further training, I was floundering. My project ideas were shot down, and I was scolded for not bringing more professional work to the table. Again, had very little experience in this area, and they knew it when they hired me. I went from trying to stand out as a stellar employee to doing my best to not be noticed. My every move became about covering my butt. I became depressed, anxious, and, in full disclosure, my work ethic suffered as well. What's the point in trying hard if I can't do anything right? Ultimately, none of this was the fault of my coworkers or immediate supervisor. The problem came from the department VPs of the company who constantly squabbled among each other, tried to undercut each other, and shifted the focus of the company from one area to the next in short, unexplained, and unannounced bursts. Processes were frequently changed with little to no warning, and if you happened to use an old process for something, you would be dragged into a VP's office and chewed out. The company president, while I never personally had an issue with him, seemed disinterested in reining in the VPs. Eventually, I was transferred into a different department. I considered this a win as I would no longer be doing any SSB, and the work was a little closer to SSA. I was placed under a manager who I got along with well on a personal level, but we butted heads professionally. Honestly, it wasn't her fault. I've come to believe that the toxic work environment we were all in brought out the worst in people. The chaos of the workplace caused by the VPs was no different in the new department, so my work and mental health continued to suffer. Eventually, I reached the end of my rope. For the first time in my life, I put in my 2 weeks notice in writing without having another job lined up. My manager was shocked and quickly became overwhelmed with the idea of taking care of my duties as well as hers. The higher-ups had no idea when they would be able to get a replacement for me. Because I try not to be a crappy person, I told her I would stay on an extra week. I was even considering 2 more weeks, so that hopefully she would have someone else lined up before I left. By this point, the VP of the department had been made aware that I had put in my notice, so they had to approve my offer to stay longer. The extra week happened to include a Monday holiday, and I was salaried, so under normal circumstances, I would have been paid for it. The VP came back and said that if I wanted to stay past my original last day according to my notice, I would be considered a temp and therefore would not be paid for the holiday. I opted to stick with my original final day and informed my manager that I would not be staying an extra week. On my last day, the office took me out to lunch. My coworkers asked me what my next job was going to be, and I told them I didn't have one. But I had enough savings where as long as I lived off ramen and water, I'd be okay for a couple months until I landed on something new. I'd already had a few interviews at this point. They responded with lighthearted comments about being jealous and wishing they could do the same. The VP showed up for a bit but didn't speak to me the entire time she was there. The fallout. I doubt this had much to do with my departure, but more just the sorry leadership and toxic work environment of the company in general. The VP for my first division was fired not long after I left. Most of the experienced workforce, to include my manager, also left over the next year or two. The company was sold and changed hands a couple times. During the last change of hands, about 70% of the employees were laid off, to include my friend who had recommended me. I never kept in contact with anyone from the company except for my friend. As for me, my last day was on a Friday. The following Tuesday, remember that Monday was a holiday, I was called and offered a job from one of my interviews. This new job ended up being not only an exponentially better work environment, but introduced me to a group of colleagues and supervisors who truly valued me and each other. The first time I made a mistake, I had so much anxiety left over from my old work environment that I nearly had a panic attack in front of my new boss. He sat me down, got me a cup of water, explained how to fix the situation, and that everything would be okay. Then chatted about mundane topics with me until I calmed down enough to return to my office. Even though I'm no longer with this company, for reasons that are neither my fault nor the company's fault, just the life of a contractor, I'm still good friends with my boss and coworkers, and would go back to work with them in a heartbeat if the opportunity presented itself. Being surrounded by toxicity in your workplace is not good for your mental health. Also, life is too short to stay in a job like that, so finding something else is definitely the right thing to do. Our last story today comes to us from Golden Cocktails. Make my friend cry and then lie about what I said in an official document? Okay, I'll play your games. Let's jump right in. Once upon a time, there was an evil witch. This all happened my senior year of college, spanning about 6 months. I lived in a duplex where the main floor and second floor were occupied by myself and friends. Oftentimes, we'd throw parties in our incredibly large attic. One of these times, we got a noise complaint. Everyone was very respectful when the cop asked us to shut things down and left no problem. All residents were 21 or 22, and we were the only ones asked to ID ourselves. Had a fine conversation with the officer, and he went on his way. Probably one of the easier incidents in a college town. While we lived off campus, any incident like this does get reported to the school. All 6 of us received a letter stating we had to go to a class about drugs and alcohol because we threw a party where drugs and alcohol were supplied to minors. We could of course appeal this, and we did. The school only needs 51% certainty that the event occurred how they thought it did. Seeing as everyone ID'd was 21 and there had been no drugs, we thought we had a strong case. This meant all 6 of us had to meet with the assistant dean individually to go through the events of the evening so she could ascertain what really happened. First 4 went fine. My female roommate was 5th and I went last. She came home in tears. The assistant dean apparently tried to rip her to pieces, said she had awful friends. Why not just admit we had drugs and given alcohol to minors? She stuck to her guns, but it sounded awful. I can handle that stuff, but I hate seeing people I care about go through situations like that. I went in prepared to my meeting, already hating this woman. I even had my phone recording the conversation in my shirt pocket. Single party consent state in terms of audio recording. The conversation ended up with her saying, "Why can't you just follow the rules and act like a grown-up?" A few weeks later, we all received another letter. They had dropped the drugs and alcohol bit due to lack of evidence, but had decided we had created an unsafe environment with only one exit. There were a few lines in the letter where Student X said in the event of a fire, guests would have been asked to jump out of the rear window, and other completely fabricated statements. Sure, there was only one flight of stairs up to the attic, but unbeknownst to the assistant dean, we had one of those fire escape ladder window things. We appealed yet again, but the second time around, you meet with a board of peers, teachers, students, assistant dean, and the police officer that had to respond to the complaint. Being a law nerd, I volunteered to go on behalf of my friends. That being said, we were allowed one person as counsel that couldn't say anything to the board, but could write things down to pass on to me. Cue malicious compliance and following the rules, just like the assistant dean had asked. I showed up early, as did the officer. He was totally chill and was getting paid overtime to show up to a meeting to do nothing instead of the usual route. Everyone shows up and the assistant dean immediately questions why I have someone with me. Well, per school code 14 subsection B, etc., I am allowed to. This is my friend X who has a law degree. Just following the rules. We got into semantics and how dangerous our party could have been, blah blah. I get to speak last without any interruptions until I yield. Time to drop bombs. I pull out printed sheets for everyone in the room of my Amazon account showing I had purchased the fire escape ladder thing months before the party had happened, proving we had indeed had multiple exits. I then passed out a copy of the letter we had received written by the assistant dean and had highlighted all of the fabrications and lies about the previous conversation I'd had with her. I recorded our entire meeting. I'd like to take time for you all to hear that. At this point, she's fuming and blurts out that what I did is illegal. The cop butts in and just gives that a big old nope. Single party consent for audio recording. We all listened to the full 15 to 20 minutes. So, as you can see, all rules were followed by myself and my peers, and nothing unlawful happened. Not one of the highlighted sections was actually said. The only thing that worries me is how the assistant dean openly lied, as well as brought my roommate to tears. I'll ask that all charges be dropped at this time against us. She then tried to backtrack, saying she had made grammatical errors in the letter, but everyone was smart enough to see the difference between the wrong form of your and telling people to jump out of a window. A few weeks later, we all received another letter stating that we were good and no further action would be taken. I then went out of my way almost daily to walk through the admin offices where the assistant dean's office was to give her a wave and a smile. If one good thing comes out of this story, it's that OP has made a case against all prior and future incidents the dean is involved in. If they lied once, specifically to cause trouble for students, then no one will trust them again. I hope you can report them to the Board of Learning and Teachers for an ethics violation. Thank you to all three OPs for posting their stories in the Malicious Compliance subreddit. They are linked in the description down below. Please go check them out. Check out one of these other videos, and if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories.